How is this possible? Right, this could be a really short video because this is the simplest recommendation I've ever made, although I'll get to that later. Let me string it out a bit first because this is YouTube. If you've never heard of CMF, it stands for Colour, Material and Finish, and it's basically Nothing's budget brand. Now, bearing in mind that Nothing makes fairly budget conscious phones anyway, because we've got the Nothing Phone 3A and the 3A Pro here as perfect examples of that. Very well priced, very well spec'd, very interesting and very tempting if you want to get a new Android phone. However, that's not enough for Nothing. They want to keep making things more affordable and, let's be honest, stick it to the bigger brands, the brands that keep making very expensive phones, even if they are mid-range. They want to show that you can do the same thing or better, or much better actually, for much, much less. This is the latest thing in that line. This is the CMF Phone 2 Pro. Now, the first CMF phone, the CMF Phone 1, didn't have Pro in the name, and it was also a little bit cheaper than this at launch. Don't worry though, because this is still very ridiculously affordable and has some incredibly interesting and I think very valuable upgrades. Let's just get straight into it. Also, they've sent me a pair of their new CMF Buds as well. I can't believe some of this, what's happening here. I genuinely can't. I've been doing this now for 5 years. This stuff has got me a bit flummoxed in a really good way. Let's talk specs and pricing very quickly. So the Phone 2 Pro has the MediaTek Dimensity 7300 chip, 8GB of RAM, 128 or 256GB of storage, although you can expand that, which is quite nice. It also has a 6.7-inch AMOLED display with a 120Hz adaptive refresh rate, 3000 nits of peak brightness, IP54 water resistance, a 5000 mAh battery, fingerprint recognition, facial recognition, and it costs 219 quid for the 128GB version and 249 quid for the 256GB version. It's just not very much money at all, is it, for a smartphone with those specs? In terms of how far it's come from the Phone 1, it's lighter, it's got a bigger display, it's got better water resistance. That display is brighter as well, by the way. Also, it's got the Pro Dimensity chip versus the standard 7300. It's got a telephoto camera, it's got an ultra-wide camera, it shoots in slow motion at 120 frames per second in 1080p. It's quite different, although it looks fairly similar, but that price, guys, it just begs the question, what do you get for that? Design and build quality, I think you're getting a lot for your money here. The looks might be a little bit divisive, but I like them personally. This is the light green version, but it comes in white, black and orange as well. It's also the thinnest phone that Nothing has ever made. If we put it up against the Nothing Phone 3A Pro, you can see that the Phone 2 Pro is considerably thinner. It's lighter as well. Also, it's got that Nothing vibe going on. So it's got exposed screws here for two reasons. One of them is because that is what Nothing does. They have exposed stuff going on the rear of their phones. The CMF phones don't have the glyph, the flashy glyph interface, but they do have these kind of design things going on. The other reason these screws are there is a functional one. So basically, as the user, you can unscrew them, take the rear casing off and put a different casing on if you want to customize the look and finish of your phone. There's also some accessories coming, like a wallet and some other bits and pieces. That's not for me personally, but if you're into customizing your stuff, then Nothing has you covered. And once again, just like everything Nothing makes, it's interesting, it's different, it gives it some character, and that matters. The display is just amazing. I don't know what more I can say about Android smartphone displays. They are just wonderful. A 120Hz refresh rate, 3000 nits of peak brightness. I think the bezels are very, very acceptable. I don't care about bezels personally, but if you do, I don't think you can argue that this is a very bezel-friendly phone, whatever you want to call it. And I have to make the comparison with the iPhone 16e because it completely smashes that phone into a different planet in terms of the display quality. It's unbelievable. It also doesn't feel like a budget phone. Some budget phones do feel a little bit cheap. This doesn't. It's also got the Essential key, which I'll explain what that does later on, but that came from the 3A and the 3A Pro, and it's just nice to see that Nothing isn't reserving those features for its main Nothing phones. This is off to a wonderful start. Camera system. Okay, this is where it gets interesting. So we get a 50 megapixel main camera, a 50 megapixel telephoto with a 2x optical zoom, an 8 megapixel ultra wide, and a 16 megapixel selfie. Now at this price point, you normally have to make big concessions with the camera system. Nothing has been very smart here in terms of what they've taken away and what they've left in. So for instance, we don't get optical image stabilization. We don't get anything beyond 2x in terms of an optical zoom. The video side of things, we can shoot in up to 30 frames per second, but not 60. Fine. It's 4K, by the way, on the back. On the front, you can only shoot in 1080p at 30 frames per second. Here's an example. 1080p only. There's no 4K. That is one of the concessions that you have to make at this price point, but it does shoot 30 or 60 frames per second. This is straight out of camera. I've not changed the audio, not changed the video. This is the stabilization. Let me know what you think in the comments. Again, absolutely fine. No problem with that whatsoever. However, they have given us an ultra wide and that telephoto, that 2x. You don't get that on the iPhone 16e. The iPhone 16e is much more expensive than this, and it has one camera. And trust me, that's my main phone, so I know what I'm talking about. It's very limited. This isn't. You get the ultra wide, you get a very good standard camera. I think the photos from this look fantastic. I think the dynamic range is good. I think, okay, they're processed, they're a bit contrasty, etc. But that's what you get from cameras these days on smartphones. More importantly, they do pop. They're pleasing immediately as soon as you take them out of the camera. Also, it's fast. It takes photos quickly. That's all you need from a smartphone. 2x zoom is very good and usable as well, and beyond that, you can go up to 20x if you want to, which gets very processed as always, which isn't for me at all, but 3 and 5x are quite usable in decent conditions. For me, they work. Again, for what we're paying for this phone, these are really good photos. Even the video performance is good. It's not too jerky like you get on some Android phones. It's really good for the price. We're paying such little money for the Phone 2 Pro. The camera system, it doesn't feel like it's been scrimped at all. It feels like they've put enough effort into it and only removed the things that they should have removed. Before we dive in further, there's something else I've been testing which is all about productivity. As much as I love taking notes on the iPad, sometimes I need something a bit more focused without the distractions, which is where this video's sponsor comes in. This is the iFlyTek AI Note Air 2, and it's about the same size as an iPad mini, which makes it very convenient. Firstly, we have the voice-to-text transcription. Whether you're in a meeting, a lecture, or brainstorming, it automatically converts speech into text in real time, so there's no need to re-listen to recordings. It even supports transcription in 14 languages and translation in 7 languages, which means it's incredibly useful for cross-border meetings and breaking language barriers. For those who prefer handwriting, the paper-like writing experience is surprisingly smooth with low latency handwriting recognition. You can also convert handwritten notes into typed text for better organization. But what really makes this stand out is the AI-powered reading function, which allows you to engage with your notes in a smarter way, which is perfect for reviewing and summarizing key points quickly. It's ideal for professionals including lawyers, journalists, and cross-border workers, or anyone who values distraction-free note-taking with smart AI integration. Not only that, during important meetings, it can also take real-time notes while simultaneously allowing you, the user, to handwrite a to-do list, which is incredibly useful. If you're looking for a faster, smarter, and more efficient way to take notes, this is really worth checking out. The link is in the description. Performance, which is the least interesting part of smartphone reviews these days for very good reason. There's 2 things that you need to know about the Phone 2 Pro. The first one is that it has 10% better CPU and 5% better graphics compared to the Phone 1. Not massive leaps forward, but that brings me on to the second thing that you need to know, which is that this phone in everyday use, and by that I mean communicating with people, web browsing, doom scrolling on X, watching YouTube, doing normal stuff, multitasking, all that stuff. This phone feels no different to the iPhone 16 Pro Max and the S25 Ultra, which cost a lot more. That's all you need to know. Battery performance is rated at 2 days in normal use. That's probably about right, to be fair, and I won't bother testing that, but it feels like a very good battery. No, it doesn't have wireless charging, but again, that's a fair and obvious concession at this price point, as is the lack of stereo speakers. We can't expect that for a phone that costs as little as this. It's just, that's not fair. And it doesn't matter. It also has Nothing OS 3, which is just utterly fantastic. I won't go into all the details about that operating system in this review, but the fact you get that on the CMF Phone 2 Pro is lovely, as is the fact that you get things like the Essential Space, which is this really clever take on AI. It feels very version 1. I think this is it's a bit beta-ish at the moment, but the idea is that you can use the camera and you can take screenshots and chuck stuff basically into an essential space. And if you dictate a note that says something like, buy this next week, it will take that and turn it into a to-do item for you. It's really, really interesting and genuinely useful. And it has that button, it has that essential key on the side of the phone, which, yes, you do hit occasionally by mistake, but it makes a lot more sense than a camera control. The only thing I would say is that as much as I love Nothing OS, I do keep changing back to the standard Android color scheme, the standard Android icon pack, just because the Nothing icon pack, as great and unique as it looks, does get a bit confusing after a while. I know some people love it, and again, it's just nice to have it there. It's interesting, but for me, I always switch back to the standard Android look. Oh, where do we go from here, guys? Oh, we can talk about these. So alongside the new phone, we're getting new buds as well. These are the CMF Buds 2 Plus, but there's also the CMF Buds 2, the CMF Buds 2A, and the CMF Buds Pro 2. Lots of different versions, almost too many, I'd say, and this isn't a earbud review, so I won't go into too much detail. All I want to say is that these CMF Buds 2 Plus, I had to double check this, they cost 49 quid, £49, which is nothing. And you'd expect at that price for them to sound rubbish and to have zero features. Firstly, they have active noise cancelling. They've got adaptive They've got customisable EQ. They've got loads of stuff in the Nothing X app that you can tweak and play around with. That Nothing X app, by the way, is superb. They also have amazing sound, like really impressive sound. They're very much tuned, I think, for bass and electronic music and that sort of stuff, but they do cope with other music as well. They're really, is that true? 49 quid. The CMF Buds 2 are 39 quid. The CMF Buds 2A are 29. Even the Pro version are 59. That's it. We need a conclusion. If you don't want an iPhone, if you're not fussed about the things that this phone doesn't have, and if Android has always been your main thing, I can't not recommend this phone. I think that if that's you, this is perfect. And it's going to save you money. Because if you normally get your phone on a contract and you pay, over 2 years for that phone, you're spending a lot of money on it. I don't know how Nothing makes money on this phone. I'm sure they do. I'm sure the margins are there, and in certain markets it probably makes a lot of sense for them. But on the face of it, you're getting so much for your money. Bonkers. And these are bonkers. I'm almost tempted to stop reviewing phones now, just because where do we go from here? Don't worry, I won't do that. However, I do want to know from you now what you think about the CMF Phone 2 Pro. Get involved in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you know where that button is.